We just talked about the opening game of the season between the Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. The question here is going to be who is going to play in the last game of the NFL season, that being Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
Well, first of all, I think the trend of the home team playing in their own stadium for the Super Bowl is going to end this season. Granted, it didn't plan out last year because the Arizona Cardinals last year were just straight up garbage. But you know what I mean, because the previous two seasons, Tampa Bay did it, the Rams did it. So the trend was still there. But I think the trend ends this season because the Raiders are not getting to the Super Bowl. Give me a break. I don't trust Josh McDaniels and Jimmy Garoppolo. He's mid. Shout out to the AEW World Champion MJF. But I do think that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and the Cincinnati Bengals are getting to the Super Bowl this year. They will knock off the Kansas City Chiefs in the jungle in the AFC Championship game. Yeah, that's right. I think the Bengals are going to have home field advantage in the AFC. As for the NFC, the only two real viable options are San Francisco and Philadelphia. I don't trust Dallas as a realistic Super Bowl contender. And I would love to put Seattle in there, but not quite yet. So it's either San Francisco or Philadelphia. I need to see more from Brock Purdy because defenses are going to study up on him. We know what San Francisco has on offense, but look at what Jalen Hurts did last year with A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders was not there, I don't think.
Miles Sanders was there last year.
Oh, my bad. That's right. He signed with the Panthers this offseason. I got mixed up. But still, think about what Jalen Hurts did with that group of skill position players, and he's running it back with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. Miles Sanders went off to Carolina, but you know the Eagles are still going to have a good running game. So I think it's going to be Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals taking on Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles.
This may be a first and only right here on Championship Rings because believe it or not, Josh,
Do you agree
with almost everything you said. Here's the difference. I also have Cincinnati taking on my Fly Eagles Fly, Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas, Nevada, Allegiant Stadium. However, I think Cincinnati goes on the road in the AFC Championship game. They go back to Arrowhead for the third straight year. Chiefs, Bengals, they each have one win apiece in the AFC Championship. Cincinnati gets a late stop on Kansas City, and they will move on to the Super Bowl. On the NFC side, this is where I disagree with you a little bit. I think the Philadelphia Eagles will be hosting the NFC Championship game.
Okay, so we agree there.
But I do not think it will be San Francisco.
Oh, don't say it.
You're going to have an all NFC East, NFC Championship game.
You trust Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy.
The Dallas Cowboys will beat the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round.
Hell no!
They will beat them because they will finally get over the hump by running the football. Brock Purdy will turn back into a pumpkin, and Dallas will come to Philadelphia for the third time, which will presumably be a rematch. I have Dallas winning in Dallas, Philly winning in Philly in the regular season. So it will be the third time Dallas and Philly will go at it. I think Philadelphia will win a close game and ultimately get back to the Super Bowl. This is what I wanted to bring up because this is what you ultimately neglected about my team, the Philadelphia Eagles. I agree with you about the offense. Obviously, we know Jalen Hurts is a stud. I think new offensive coordinator Brian Johnson is going to do a great job with him. Called plays in college, was the quarterback coach the last 2 years in Philly. I do not suspect a huge drop off there, leaving Shane Steichen obviously going to Indianapolis. However, what you failed to talk about was the Eagles' defensive line, the best defensive line in football. I don't
You
want to
mean
hear
the
about the
University of
Jets. I
Georgia?
don't want to hear about the Jets. I don't want to hear about the Browns. I don't want to hear about any other team's defensive line because the Philadelphia Eagles have by far the best defensive line in football. Let's just start here. Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Hassan Reddick. That's the first four. That is your front four. How about
Hey, don't forget about the two guys you drafted this year, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith.
How about the second wave? How about let's go? I don't know. How about Brandon Graham? How about Jalen Carter? How about Milton Williams? How about Nolan Smith?
There you go.
How about Derek Barnett? And what about this secondary? Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Avante Maddox, Kiwi Ringo, Eli Ricks. It is a deep and loaded secondary. I think Reed Blankenship in his first full starting year at safety is going to have a breakout year, in my opinion. Linebacker, so would have been weak outside of Nakobe Dean, but Nakobe Dean is a tackling machine. And this Eagles defense under new defensive coordinator Sean Diazzi is going to blitz more. They're going to get after the quarterback even more than what they did last year when they broke the record last year for most sacks in a regular season. This Eagles team is ferocious, and the defensive line is what is going to win them the Super Bowl against the Cincinnati Bengals. As great as the Bengals offense is, and we saw it, they almost pulled it off against the Rams 2 years ago. One of the Eagles defensive linemen will make a play, and at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, the last two Super Bowl losers we both predict will meet up this year, and I am predicting that the Philadelphia Eagles will raise the banner in Las Vegas.
All right. Let me ask you this, though. The Eagles defense has had a lot of losses this offseason. You had Brian Edwards, for example, went to the Bears.
TJ Edwards.
TJ Edwards, excuse me. You had CJ Gardner-Johnson. He left to join the Detroit Lions. Your defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, went to become the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I'm so sorry for him. But do you think those losses could hurt your defense at all?
Let me address the one. I think Nakobe Dean's going to fill in for TJ Edwards just fine. I like TJ Edwards as a player, but Nakobe Dean was sitting behind him last year, sitting and waiting. And when Nakobe Dean got limited action, he was a tackling machine, like I previously just said. So I think we'll be fine there. The one position that I'm a little bit worried about is safety. We are going to have Tremaine Edmonds and Reed Blankenship back there. Pretty much a new safety unit because Marcus Epps, who you did not mention, went to the Raiders in free agency. So we do have two new safeties, but Reed Blankenship was in the system. I think Tremaine Edmonds will fill in just fine. And as for Jonathan Gannon, as grateful as I am for as good of a defensive coordinator as he was leading up to the Super Bowl, there are Eagles coaches who actually will believe Jonathan Gannon through the game against Kansas City because Gannon lied about being interviewed for the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job. Gannon was not focused on the Super Bowl. Gannon was getting ready for the Arizona job without telling anybody he was getting ready for the Arizona job. And so for that matter, I say good riddance, Jonathan Gannon. We will beat you down week 17, New Year's Day, when you come to Philadelphia and take on the Eagles, or it'll probably be a 1-15 Arizona Cardinal football team at that point.
Fair enough. First of all, thanks for correcting me about TJ Edwards. And secondly, I know I didn't mention all the players that left your defense. Those were just the first names that came to mind. But I will tell you this. Why is it that the Eagles lost their offensive coordinator to a head coaching position, and they lost their defensive coordinator to a head coaching position?
Because we had a lot of success, and we have really good coaches and really good talent.
But here's the thing. Didn't the Chiefs win the Super Bowl?
Okay.
How come they didn't? How come Eric Bieniemy didn't get a head coach position? How come their defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo get a head coaching position? That's what I'm confused about.
Well, the Spagnola issue is because he's a former head coach and he is also a older coach in the league. People want young, bright, whether it's offensive or defensive minds, preferably offensive minds. That's why Indy went after Shane Steichen. I was actually surprised Gannon got a job. Apparently, he had relationships with people in Arizona, and I actually think that's the only reason why he got that job. Steichen was high priced because he's a young, bright offensive mind that did great things with Justin Herbert as well as Jalen Hurts. And people knew that he was calling the plays. The reason why nobody went after Eric Bieniemy is because nobody gave him success, because people like myself believe that Andy Reid was actually calling that offense. Well, we're going to see what Bieniemy does this year with Sam Howell in Washington. I think they'll be okay, not great. I think there's more of a chance Bieniemy actually becomes the head coach there and they get rid of Ron Rivera at the end of the season. But if you want to know the reason, that's the reason.
Okay, fair enough. Do you get where my confusion is coming from, though?
No, I don't. It's very simple. There's nothing confusing about it.
It's just that, like, the Eagles lost the Super Bowl, and yet their head coach or their offensive.
By the way, Steichen was pretty much already hired before the Super Bowl, and so was Gannon.
Okay, fair enough.
So it had nothing on the outcome of the game. And Spagnuolo's never getting a head coaching job again. And Bieniemy, some people think there's other factors, and we won't dive into that right now. But he's got to prove himself this year with Washington.
Fair enough. I just thought it was an interesting facet to the equation.